I'm jonesing for a live crowd, Rand. I can't take much more of this. They got us locked away like animals. Yeah. Caged, pacing animals. We miss you guys so much. We hope you miss us, but here's your Premier Planet podcast for this week. So, Rand, what's on the docket? What you got up here?
First things first. So I've noticed that I finally watched one. And I don't particularly like to watch myself. But I've noticed that I must slow down when I speak and enunciate a little bit more. Now this is going to be hard for me when I get emotional or excited, but I'm going to make a conscious effort. The other thing I've noticed, if you look here, with the gray, it looks like I could be thinning on top, but I'm not, so I'm going to go up to the camera for proof. See what I'm saying? There's roots there. There's absolutely no balding. And I do have a scar here from where Meng bit me once in a match that hair just won't grow on. But outside of that, I am not balding. I have a full head of hair, 54, almost 55 years old. Okay, now we can go.
I think maybe you already segued. I don't even know the story. Meng bit you in a match.
Yeah, well, okay, so Green Bay, Wisconsin, yes, Meng bit me in a match. I was going to give him a nut shot as he was coming down and his teeth went right into my head.
Oh.
But that's okay. He got hurt worse than I did. He didn't lose the teeth, but they were not loose. Sometimes that'll solidify back up. And speaking of Meng or Haku, what a fucking sweet guy. Seriously, what a great guy. Toughest guy in the world. I mean, it is intimidating because when you're working with him, he gets into this zone where he's doing the us's and he's speaking Tongan, you know? So it's kind of scary because he's so thick. You don't know how thick he is. You see him on TV and he's thick, but you don't know how thick he is until you're in the ring with him, like standing there. You're going, geez, you could compact 3 of me into that. And he keeps talking like, you know, in Tongan, so it's a little intimidating, you know. And the other thing too, when he grabs that thing on you, the Tongan death grip.
Yeah, I remember him using that.
No, for real, that thing is a shoot. Because he grabs it, you know, where shoot,
yeah.
And it's up to him. If he just does a little, you're going down. But he grabs it, and you know, so you see everybody put their hand there. You know, that's a shoot because you're going, oh my God, if this guy chooses to just squeeze a little bit, my ass is going out. So it's not like you're not struggling for air, so to speak. But all of a sudden, man, the stars come and your ears start ringing. And you're like, oh my God, oh my God. And then he releases.
and you realize he's not going to kill you, but he could.
He could. So easily, too. Because, I mean, it's not, I can't find it, and I can't find it online either.
I know there's a nerve or something right
We
under
know
there.
there's a nerve. But you can't find it online. Google it. You can't find it. And he won't show anybody because he knows then the guys will be playing shit on each other with the Tongan death grip, which is nothing to mess around with, you know. He was hesitant to, so the way that came out, and this is a shoot, this is a true story. Tonga and Terry were at a bar somewhere on the road for WCW, and as usual, someone in the bar comes up to Tonga, of all people, to test him if that pro wrestling is fake.
Oh, God.
And it happened to the guy all the time. He'll tell you that too. So rather than rip out an eye, which he's done in the past, rather than bite off a nose, which he's done in the past, he was in a peaceful mood and he just grabbed that thing on him and in seconds ended it. Terry says, that's gotta be your finish. Tonga's like, no, I'm not gonna do that because the kids might start trying it on each other. So it took Terry a long time to get him to use that as a finish, you know, which was outstanding. If you don't mind, what I like to talk about is Bruiser Brody. And not so much about the sensationalization of what happened to Brody, but, or not so much about what happened to Brody, but about the people sensationalizing it. So you're how old?
34.
Would you be so kind as describe what your version or what you've heard in regards to what happened to Frank Goodish, i.e. Bruiser Brody, in Puerto Rico?
What I understand was that Brody got on somebody's bad side over something. I can't remember what it was, but one day as he was in the shower, whoever this guy was walked in and stabbed him to death.
Okay. Now that is a nutshell, and that is pretty much what people believe, or Americans believe. I don't know about other countries, probably worse or is the same, where that's the story in a nutshell. And there's so much more to it than that. What I'd like to start with is this. If you Google and look at the history of Puerto Rico, the United States of America made Puerto Rico, they gave them an offer they couldn't refuse, to keep them from becoming a communist island like Cuba. When they did so, the Puerto Rican country, or the island of Puerto Rico, islands actually, was one of the top producers in the world for coffee and sugar. Once we put them on, made them a U.S. dependent, which equals the welfare system, you know, it's cultural differences. Even though we did that, we've always been, you know, not just today, I mean, go back to when they became independent, we've always thrown in their face what we've done for them and kind of treated them like the redheaded stepchild. Mm-hmm. Yes, we give them money, but in the same token, we insult their culture. We insult their pride without trying. And that's only because of the cultural differences. I'm not going to say America's wrong or our government is wrong, but our government doesn't have, in the history of our government, doesn't have the understanding or the patience of the cultural differences. Therefore, it will be taken as a lack of respect.
Right.
So, even though Puerto Rico is a U.S. dependent, our laws don't apply there. You know, our laws don't apply as far as like labor law, for example. There are some companies who still sell coffee or harvest coffee in Puerto Rico. It's a great climate for coffee. They pick and pay by the bean.
So not by the hour, it's by the output.
Which is illegal. That's, again, goes against United States labor law. Here it would be illegal. Your best bean pickers on the island, and these guys, you can imagine how fast they're picking.
Yeah.
Only make at the most $75 a day. So you take $75 times 5 days a week times a month. It's not enough to feed even a small family. On the island, gas is the same as the United States. Because the island's so hot and humid, cows don't thrive there, so dairy is at least 2 to 3 times what we pay here. You know, they do have some natural resources, but they don't have they don't have the resources they need to take advantage of those. Farming the sugar, farming any crops, and fishing. The only thing that thrives on the island is pigs, but pigs will thrive just about anywhere.
Yeah.
You know? So, what happened? There was a couple of guys that were loyal to Puerto Rico. I'm finding out more and more history of wrestling on the island. My fascination with the island goes back a long way. There was a promoter, and I come to find out a female promoter that your older Puerto Ricans will refer to as Mendoza. I don't know if she was a worker, I'm getting the information now. If she was a wrestler or just a promoter, but she was from Mexico, and she would come down and run wrestling in Puerto Rico and do very well. She would come in and put on these big shows and do great. Wrestling was great there. She didn't have television, and I got to find out how far back and see how many stations they had that were Puerto Rican based when she ran wrestling. But anyway, that spawned into WWC, the World Wrestling Council, owned and operated by Victor Jovica and Carlos Colon. I watched The Dark Side of the Ring, you know, the episode. Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet. I've heard a lot about it.
Okay. Huh.
I'm waiting to be in one of those modes where I feel like being slightly depressed when I'm watching something.
I don't think you necessarily have to be
It's the title that gets me, so.
Yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying. So,
You're
the
not-
Dark Side of the Ring, that's when I first started watching because I wanted to see. It was primarily narrated as well as most of the first season, primarily narrated by Dutch Mantel, Zeb Coulter. They had some people on that show that I know. Well, I stumbled upon someone's podcast last week who podcasted only because it's a popular topic. He knows nothing about it. And the same guy who was literally bashing and claiming conspiracy theories against Carlos Colon and Victor Jovica went down to the island for a stint and worked for Carlos Colon and Victor Jovica. My question to that guy is, he's a Canadian, if you had such a problem with the way you tried to spin and sensationalize this, and you're such a man of honor and integrity, why in the fuck did you go and not only work for Victor Jovica and Carlos Colon after Brody's death, because you broke in after I did, and I broke in the year Brody died, I think 88.
88.
Yeah. And not only that, when I went to the island and I was working for IWA, which was running against Cologne and WWC, and I have no personal problems or heat with Cologne or Jovica. I don't really know them on a personal level, but we have a lot of mutual friends and acquaintances, and I try not to burn bridges, as I was taught in the industry. When I was down on the island, we were trying to figure out how to reinvigorate on a low budget, on a shoestring, trying to emanate what we do here, work on a shoestring budget down there to get restarted after Victor Quinones, the owner of IWA's death. So there was a short list of people that may come in for a reasonable rate. There was a short list of momos that would come in for nothing or next to nothing, and then there was a list of gimmicks that we could redo. And one of those gimmicks was the Texas Hangman, who was incepted by my friend Frank Veazey, Bull Payne, and Mike Moran. They were outstanding. They were, wow, unbelievable. But anyway, so you see what we were trying to do, you know, with what we had, trying to work with what we had. Victor is gone now, so IWA's business side was gone. The influx of money, the restart of capital was gone. There was nothing to work with. So this guy from Canada who sensationalizes this crap, and now he claims to be this social warrior in regards to Brody's death. And isn't it funny too how he waits to talk about it after the Dark Side of the Ring episode comes out and is so popular? So this guy was calling and begging Luke, saying he would actually come down there and wrestle just for a place to stay and a gym membership. So don't give me that shit, you're like this high road mother effer, you know. I've discussed the cultural differences, and it's very hard to take in the cultural differences. When I went to Puerto Rico, I treated it like I treated the business. I am in their house. I'm going to behave. I'm going to pick up after myself. I'm going to clean up after myself. I'm not going to kiss ass because I knew that Latinos in general don't like ass kissers, especially on the island. But I'm going to get the lay of the land. And like I said before, I'm in their house. I'm not going to start moving their fucking furniture. You know what I mean? So you have to pay dues, just like the business. I have to pay dues. I'm in their country and I'm trying to be a businessman. You know? In the process of paying dues, I did not want to perform. Well, one of the first things they do is, amigo, this guy or that guy didn't show up, could you wrestle? Sure. You know, I'm not going to pretend like I'm better than any fucking thing. I see Gustavo retaping the ropes, and it's weird. I'm like a savant. I'm an idiot savant. When it comes to doing retaping those ropes, man, ever since I got broke in the business, you know? So I see this old guy struggling. I look at the time. I'm like, well, go help the prick. You know, I'm not above anything. I want to show them that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I had a lot of time in the business and paid a lot of dues, but I have to repay. And I understand that. You know what I mean? And I know that that garners respect. You know? So, after I had paid my dues in the process of proving myself, and it takes a fucking while. You know, it takes a while. I went from the small corner cubicle out in the middle of nowhere by the front door, where everybody that walks in or out basically brushes up against my butt or the chair, and I gotta move, and I'm like, okay, it's all right. I felt like I was sitting at a kid's desk in grade school. But that's okay, I'm down here for a reason, and ego isn't that important to me, the money was. You know what I mean? And I gotta be honest with you, there was so much pride there, too. IWA Puerto Rico had 4 hours of television every Saturday and Sunday. 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, you know? So, one day, I come in, they go, hey, we moved your stuff into Victor's office. You can go stay and work now in Victor's office after I've been there a month or 2 or something, you know? I'm like, huh, thank you very much, you know? Victor's got a fucking nice office. You know what I mean? I mean, he was flamboyant to say the least, so he spent some fucking money on that furniture and, you know, the other stuff. This office was perfect movie set for a swinging dick's office. You know what I mean? So I'm in there that morning, and then I go to lunch, and I come back, and there's a guy in the office who looks familiar, but I can't place him. And I think it was Savio, maybe Ben Miguelito Perez comes in and go, this is Jose. This is Invader 1. He just came to work for us. He just jumped ship from World Wrestling Council. You're going to be sharing an office with him. And I go, motherfucker, that's the guy that stabbed Brody. You know? Now, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm not going to go into a long dissertation about it, but when I was a kid, one of the biggest regrets I have is not going to work for Carlos Colon and WWC in about 1989 or 90, because Gringos scared me into not going to the island. And the end of the conversation was, you saw what they did to Brody, who was a bad motherfucker. Imagine what they're going to do to you. Fast forward 20 some odd years, and I'm sitting there sharing an office with Invader 1, you know? And I'm like, huh. You know, so I'm watching, I introduce myself, dressed very well, in phenomenal shape, and smells great. Well-groomed, you know, what a gentleman. And I'm like, 2 and 2 ain't making fucking 4 here, from what I've heard. Because I heard basically the same shit you heard. Yeah. And probably more dramatic, because wrestlers, and the bigger and badder they are, I swear to God, the more fucking drama and spin they'll put on to a story.
And this shows you how much spin was put on it, because Brody died in '88. I was 2 years old at the time. So all I have to go on is secondhand information. You were actually around, and you were still getting all sorts of different spins on the story. So it's no wonder that there's all these different takes out there on what happened.
Yeah, and Brody was he was well respected everywhere he went. I'm not going to say well loved, but I think that what I found is the people that didn't love him usually had it coming, and that's the only time he would react towards someone, you know? So I know why they put him in that office. Miguel and Savio wanted to see what the fuck I would do. I'm a gringo sharing an office with Jose. I come in the next day, it's pretty much phone calls, it's pretty much emails, you know, coming in and out of the office asking questions because I'm trying to get my shit together to promote the towns. And I went to lunch and I said, I can't take it no more. So I came back in and I go, Jose, I gotta talk to you. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. What the fuck happened with Brody's stabbing?
Just came right out with it?
Yeah, I had to, man, because, you know, I was really trying to set up shop there. Once I got there and doing a lot of the basics that I know of, working with what resources we had, The gates were up immediately 300%. Now, that being said, it was a hell of a feat because this was during the fucking Olympics. So our wrestling programming was fucking preempted. But still, I got the gates up over 300% right away. I saw the potential. Everybody saw the potential. You know what I mean? So he's a little, I'm not going to say taken back. I want to say he was probably as curious as I was. You know what I mean? Here's this fucking gringo asking me direct about what the fuck happened with Brody. Now, on the island, this is also about the time that I'm saying to my friends that would speak English that I made on the island, the Puerto Ricans, why is it everywhere I go on the island, Puerto Ricans look at me like I've got a third eye or two heads? And Dennis Rivera, Savio Vega's little brother, says, well, it's because, man, we see gringos down here, but they certainly don't talk to us. And we see gringos down here only in Isla Verde and San Juan. You know, you go up to somebody in Rincon and say, how are you? I'm Randy. What do you do for a living? We freak out.
They're not used to it.
Exactly. So me and Jose sat there. I watched his body language too, just in case I asked the wrong question. I'm going to piss him off. But this is how I've got to live. And when I was away from my home to avoid getting in trouble, a fucking workaholic. The best way to do it is work until an hour before I go to bed, underpants time, which you've been privy to, and watch whatever the fuck until I pass out and get up and repeat, you know? So he starts to tell me the story. And what happened was this. So the company is owned by Carlos Colon and Victor Jovica. They had deals with certain guys in the past that would own a percentage of their company. One of those guys was Gorilla Monsoon.
No shit.
Yes. While Vince Gorilla was under contract, I don't know about Junior, but I know Vince Senior, he used to make the occasional appearance there and perform on their card. It was Gorilla Monsoon versus Andre the Giant. Look it up. It was outstanding at Roberto Clemente Stadium. What a blast. Gorilla, Gino, and his family, his wife, loved the island. They loved their vacation condo on the island, so that's why. You know, Gorilla loved the island. And Gorilla drew money. He meant a lot on the island. There's a lot of New York Ricans. So since far back before I was born, a lot of Puerto Ricans traveled to and from New York City and proper, you know, but mostly New York City. So that being said, Gorilla Monsoon was royalty as far as wrestling went to New York, so they knew who the hell he was. You know what I mean? Another guy who owned stake in the company, who just swung a deal to own stake in the company, was Frank Goodrich, Bruiser Brody. I know Bruiser prided himself on never having to be dependent on the American promotions, meaning WCW and World Wrestling Federation and World Wrestling Entertainment. He's come in for them, I think, both, but he was never dependent on them because he liked to call his own shots. And basically, it kind of put him in a position with Japan and Puerto Rico where he was in business for himself. Now, being in business for yourself today is not fucking popular. You know what I'm saying? I would equate over the last 10 years, maybe more now, Rocky and Steve Austin, and in some cases Shawn Michaels. They would go into business for themselves, but they've earned that spot. When Rocky and Austin went into business for themselves, and Punk, and CM Punk, they fucking got over, see? With the exception of Michaels, the other three, Punk, Austin, Rocky, they had self-interest involved, but they knew their self-interest was attuned or tied to the fans' reaction, you guys coming back and giving you something to fucking come back for. You know what I'm saying? That's what Brody did. So I don't think, in the way I hear it, he didn't want to come in and out of there unless he had a part ownership. All that meant was that he had 10%, and I don't know if it's 10% of the entire territory. It might have only been 10% of the houses that he worked on. I don't know because I never saw the paperwork, but I doubt there was paperwork. because I'll bet you to this day a lot of Puerto Ricans in business still do it, cultural differences, with a handshake. Puerto Ricans, what I learned first off is I can live on the island as long as I know the terms agua, pollo, and God damn it, I forget the name of that other shit I love so much. Yuca. I could survive on the island. But I learned not to look at anybody. The Puerto Rican women age very well. So you got to watch yourself when you're in public or private. You don't ogle or even think of ogling where someone could tell you're kind of ogling their mother, their wife, their girlfriend, or their daughter. You know what happens if you do? You get fucking stabbed. You know? Puerto Ricans, when I've celebrated holidays down there, and it's unbelievable. First you have the intermediate family, then you do the extended family, and then till the fucking sun comes out, they finish off the celebrations of Three Kings, Christmas, Thanksgiving in the street with the entire fucking neighborhood. Everybody in that neighborhood has some sort of salsa band that is fucking outstandingly great. So all these old guys go and grab their instruments, and the motherfucker grabs the mic and they sing. It's such a good time. The problem is, when they start getting drunk, they forget those rules about ogling family members. And Puerto Ricans stab each other. They stab each other. That's how they settle their differences. Okay? That's what happened with Frank. Jovica and Colon owned the territory. Invader was the booker. Everybody is afraid of Brody because at the end of the day, Brody was a tough motherfucker, you know? And Brody is known for, if he thought something was unfair, he'd fucking smack you. But it wouldn't just be a smack, you know? Chuck Zito is the former New York City, or New York, I think the state, maybe the city. He's the former New York chapter president of the Hells Angels. You could Google him too. Chuck Zito knocked Van Damme out with one punch.
Oh shit.
Yeah. If you disrespect Chuck, and he's an old school Italian, raised by old school Italians and even older school Italians in the neighborhood. If you disrespect me, we can still be friends, but you've got a smack coming. I owe you a smack. You know? You might be able to decide head or gut, but you got to get fucking smacked so we can move on with our relationship. It's not about emotion. You know what I'm saying? The island is pretty much the same way. They are a smaller people. So, there's history between Invader, Jose, and Brody going back to Vince Sr. When Jose was breaking in a handful of times, more than one occasion, Brody beat the ever-loving shit out of him. He beat the shit out of him. One of the last times he beat the shit out of Jose, when he was a young man breaking in the States, Brody almost killed him. That's how bad the beating was, you know?
So there's already bad blood there.
It was already bad blood there. This happened in the United States. Jose was a young man, he couldn't do shit. And I'm not gonna justify, because I'm not justifying what the fuck happened. You know what I mean? I will understand though, and I'll go back to the cultural differences where I'm not gonna fucking judge and sensationalize shit. So, Frank was owed money by Jovica and Colon. They did not want to deal with Brody, and they said to Jose, you're the booker, you handle it. You know, Frank sought them out because Frank wanted to talk about his fucking money and when he was going to get it. Now, one more thing I have to bring up. Puerto Ricans will stab you over disrespect. They don't stab each other over fucking money. Everybody down there owes each other money. One of the reasons in the history of the industry, and you can fact check me on this, as a matter of fact, the Texas Hangman left the island with Carlos's tag belts. Gringos got $750 a week down there, and your plane ticket down. You wouldn't get round trip because you wouldn't get your tickets till you go back. Carlos would always keep your last paycheck, even though you were owed the $750, you know? So that's just, again, about the cultural difference and the custom. Some guys were pissed off about it, like the Hangman. They were so pissed off about it, they brought Carlos's belts to the States and refused to give them back, and I think they might still have them until they got their last week. You know what I'm saying? So they fuck each other over on money. I know a lot of guys that stayed down there after Victor died and worked for nothing or next to nothing, keeping a tally of what they were owed. But at the end of the day, everybody knew they weren't going to get it. Now, with all due respect, because I had a family, I told myself first I wasn't going to get sucked up into this, we're going to make it once we turn the next corner, because I've been in that thinking with business, as you can see here. The first week I was owed money, I was going to buy a ticket and come home. And that's why I left finally. You know what I mean? I wasn't owed that much, $200-300. But I wasn't going to fall into it. I know some guys that were owed in excess of $50,000, just coming to terms with the fact that they're never going to see it. You know what I'm saying? So, they don't understand why you would be upset. They would be upset about that 50, but they wouldn't be upset about that 750 or that last paycheck, because they would look at the overall and accept it and go, man, it was a good run. I learned a lot. You know what I'm saying? But when and there's no conspiracy. Like I say, again, there is no conspiracy. For no other reason than Jovica and Carlos did not want to face Brody on the money issue, and that's what we have a booker for, and that's what it used to be. Read Ole's book. You know, when it comes, I know he has at least one book, right?
Who was that?
Ole Anderson.
I have no idea.
Ole Anderson has one book. I think it's called Inside Out. The booker had the juice. The booker did all the work, and he dealt with talent. You know, a booker wasn't doing his job if talent had to go above his head and go to the office. It's very similar, but the Puerto Ricans, as I stated, have a lot more pride. So, I've also seen a lot of books. You could see and hear in wrestling, period, in locker rooms, the old-timers always had a knife on them. They always had a gun on them. You know what I mean? If they could, just in case. The fans were crazy. In Puerto Rico, the fans were fucking crazy, and everybody knows. I mean, have you heard those stories about them getting pelted with spark plugs and rocks?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I've heard those.
They very, very rarely sold ringside seats in Puerto Rico. They used to have armed guards or armed security in Puerto Rico. It was but not uncommon. And you could look it up. There's a match between Slash Venom and Apollo and Ricky and someone else, where the match ended in a riot. It was a cage match. There was so much heat that people fucking charged the fucking ring and took the fucking cage down, and you got the babies and the heels running out of there for their lives. Yeah. You know what I mean? So the shit is real and the shit is on. Now, if I was just telling somebody this, and one of the guys that I got at NXT or World Wrestling Entertainment, one of the first guys I got a tryout for was this kid, Alpha Samoa, Lorenzo Hood. You could Google his ass too, man. I mean, I seen him deliver a 7-second knockout in his first MMA fight. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh, Lorenzo? Yeah, I never met him, but he was the first two shows I came to for Premiere. Yeah. That last one in McHenry and then the relaunch in Villa Park, he was on both those cards. Never had the pleasure of meeting him, but everything I know about the guy I've heard from you and some of the guys who were around when he was around.
Well, from what you know about him, I mean, isn't he larger than life personified?
Oh, dear God, yeah. All you have to do, I think he cut, I don't know how many promos. I think there was one promo specifically that he cut, very soft-spoken, but looked right into the camera, and you realize that if this guy wanted to, he could snap you in half.
So, for me to put my thumbprint on somebody who, especially somebody who's green, and refer them to World Wrestling Entertainment, I have to know this person. I have to know their weak spots. I have to know their strong suits, their strengths, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because that's what WWE tests for, you know. If you're full of shit, they're gonna know by the second day, typically. They have experts that have put together their regimen. They have experts that have put together their training regimen. You know what I'm saying? Kid is 6'4", 290 pounds at the time. I know certain spots on the body that some of the old timers taught me, Robert Ford, the Tennessee stud, thank you, where you can hit a guy typically and control him. When Mike Awesome first broke in, I had to carry that guy for the first month. He hadn't had a match yet. They claim he had 6. No fucking way. At the time, he was 340 pounds. The first night in, Frank Morrell, the referee, I says, "What's the finish, Frank?" Never seen this kid before, never met this kid before. He goes, "Something called a power bomb." I don't know, I go, "What's that?" "I don't know either. I guess we'll find out." What? Well, that first power bomb knocked me cold. I almost got fired because I stumbled into the babyface locker room almost because I didn't know where the hell I was.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Now, within a week, the old timers taught me how to handle Mike. Not beat the shit out of Mike, not go to war with Mike, but hit Mike in certain spots where Mike had to fucking bend over and go, "Okay, you call it." And that was survival. You know what I'm saying? Me and Mike didn't talk. There weren't no text messages then. He was in one locker room, I was in the other. We didn't talk till we got in that ring, or not talk, because he was so nervous. And you can imagine at 340, so nervous, working without calling anything. You know what I'm saying? I learned how to manhandle him, so finally they put me in a second month with him to soften him up to work with Jerry Lawler on the house shows. And Brickhouse Brown, who was a heel, just turned babyface. And Brick got a message to me saying, "Mike Awesome asked if you could please lighten up. He's over there hunched over almost in tears saying you ruptured his fucking spleen." I tried that shit on Alpha Samoa and it didn't work. You know, half Italian, half Samoan, it didn't work. He must have muscles over those fucking nerves because I couldn't get to those fucking nerves. Even to give him just a little sting to slow him down, what are you trying to do? You know, so that being said, if Alpha Samoa was coming at me, what could I do? If he was coming at me and it was on and I feared for my life, I'm sorry, but if I had my knife on me, I would have to stab him. You know, where did Jose stab Brody? In the stomach. He didn't go for the heart. He didn't cut his throat. See what I'm saying? So he was afraid of Brody. Puerto Ricans carry knives on them. You can even see in the Dark Side of the Ring when they asked Dutch, who was there at the time, not booking, but as talent. When he called the hospital or went to the hospital, talking to the nurse or the administrator, someone that spoke English, he said, "Please, my friend has been stabbed." She said, "You're in Puerto Rico. There's a lot of people tonight that have been stabbed. We'll get to them when we can get to them." See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Frank didn't die from the stab wounds. Again, I am not justifying it. I'm saying just please consider, and I'm glad I'm the type of person that will consider all sides of that. You know what I'm saying? Frank died, bled to death. That's what happened to Frank. Now, the first thing is the building, the streets there are awful. You know, there is no traffic tickets. The only place there's traffic tickets on the island is the fucking one stretch of highway that they have. You know, that's it. The rest of it is catch as can and fucking bumper cars, okay? Nothing is designed to handle traffic. It's 2 fucking lanes and you're talking about a sold out building. It takes more than 10 minutes to get around the block during a sellout. I've been there for those, you know what I mean? And nobody is in a fucking hurry. Every day there's a fucking unbelievable traffic jam. I've been in cars on not the highway, but the roadway, which that would mean 4 lanes instead of 2, where they have a car wreck every day. They drive, the rules don't apply. The law does not apply. I don't think there's traffic court in Puerto Rico. You know what I'm saying? Is what I'm saying at the end of the day. So you drive by a car wreck and there's fatalities. They cover it with a sheet. They cover the body with the sheet, and you're at a snail's pace and you got to watch exposed to this dead body forever. The legs are still fucking twitching under the sheet, but they're dead because you know that fucking sheet's covering their head. You see what I'm saying?
It's just that residual nerve impulse.
And it's the cultural. They don't have the resources that we do. They don't, the medical, if you guys want to check out socialized medicine, ask a Puerto Rican about it. You know, ask a Puerto Rican about it because it's friggin' horrible. You can't make appointments. You go there and you wait. If you don't get in, you go in the next day and you wait. If you don't get in, repeat. See what I'm saying? So the hospitals are not like the United States, and they got to Brody when they got to Brody, okay? Brody was like Hulk Hogan on the island. If they could, they would have made him preferential, you know? First thing was, it took way too long for the paramedics to get in there and to do what they have to do to pack said wound and to get him to the hospital. I think it was Savio Vega who actually had to call one of the radio stations and ask them to put out a broadcast or put out a message that said, if there's any paramedics or ambulances in the area, get to fucking Bail. I think it was Bailman. Anyway, get to the building. Someone's been stabbed. See what I'm saying? So it took way too long. He wasn't in good shape when he got there. They were able to fix one problem, but the liver, which bleeds like a motherfucker, the liver bleeds more than, I think that's finally what killed Frank, was he bled to death from his liver. You know? So the conspiracy or the cover-up, you know, did you hear that stuff about the cover-up or conspiracy?
No, I haven't heard. All I know is what I've been told about who, what, and where.
Savio Vega, who's a prince. I love Savio Vega as a performer and as a friend, and I would say even borderline family. Savio did an RF video shoot that this Canadian referred to on his podcast, where he tries to put words in Savio's mouth, where he says even Savio Vega says there was a conspiracy. No, he didn't. They asked him a question, and Savio answers primarily in English, either yes or no. When he doesn't know for sure, he could say, I think yes. If he doesn't know for sure, I think no. That doesn't mean yes in court. That doesn't mean no in court. That means I feel like. You know what I'm saying? Savio Vega never went on record and accused Jovica and Colon of conspiring to cover up for Invader stabbing at Brody. You know? What finally happened? What's your version of what did you hear finally happened with Jose? Did you hear of any consequences?
I actually didn't. All I know is what happened with Brody.
Okay.
I know that he was stabbed in the shower, and like you said, I did know that he bled to death. But after that, I have no clue. So I'm learning just as much as you guys are.
So again, it's tragic as fuck. It's tragic. It's horrible. It's a horrible waste of talent. I didn't know the man personally, but I knew a lot of guys that worked for him, you know, or worked with him, not for him, worked with him. Okay? I'm not condoning what the fuck happened, but I will understand, okay? What finally happened was Jose, Invader 1, was acquitted of the charges, and it was found to be self-defense. You know? Like I said before, if I put myself in Invader's shoes with that history, and after he beat me up, the other thing, the last thing I want to say, and then I'll let you. Invader just lost his toddler grandchild to drowning in a pool that week. So he was not in a good frame of mind to begin with. But in Puerto Rico, you have work, you have that responsibility, you can't stay home and mourn. So he wasn't in a good frame of mind as it was either. He got the shit beat out of him a handful of times, like bad. One time, like I said, literally within an inch of his life from Brody. So when he stabbed him, he was considered innocent. It was justifiable, you know. Now, by United States standards, he would have got a certain degree of murder.
Probably a second-degree murder, or at the very least manslaughter.
Yeah, or a third degree, you know what I mean? United States law does not apply on the island, even though they're a U.S. dependent. So that being said, he walked free. It was probably, by definition, self-defense.
Well, considering where the wound was, you said yourself, he didn't go for the heart, he didn't go for the head, he didn't go for any of the vital areas. It's not, you know, if you put yourself in that situation, you know, you're not going to spend your time in self-defense trying to get over to the head or into the neck with a knife. You're going to go for the first part of the body that you can go for to get the guy the hell away from you.
I honestly think he was just trying to prevent himself from getting a fucking beating again. And I don't blame Frank one bit for wanting his money. You know what I'm saying? But Frank wanted to take it out on someone, and he had a lack of respect for Jose to begin with. There's no conspiracy. This is what happens on the island. That's all I got to say on that. You got anything?
I mean, it's a lot to, I mean, I learned a lot from it, and hopefully you guys did too, but yeah, it's crazy because, like I said, I mean, there's so many different variations of the story, and saying that it was self-defense, it was premeditated, and this and that. So hearing it from somebody who actually has experience on the island, understands the culture and what it's like down there, and we can take those into consideration.
And knows Invader 1, who knows Jose. Now, I shared an office with him for another month and a half, 2 months. We didn't have one problem. Jose's English was phenomenal, and he liked kibitzing with me because it gave him a chance to keep his English sharp as well, and he would say that.
So Bruiser Brody, very unfortunate loss.
Horrifying.
In the wrestling world.
Don't get me wrong. If Brody was alive for even a little bit longer, if Brody was alive today, there's no telling the changes and the impact he would have had on the industry as a whole and creating opportunity, because if he liked you, he created opportunity for you. Ask guys like John Nord that.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, a big loss losing Brody, but at the same time, you know, two guys in an extraordinary circumstance that ended tragically.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
It's a horrible, horrible shame. Now let's wrap it up with some of our current stuff. You know, what are we doing? We're taping crowdless.
Yep.
It's not as bad as I thought it would be, since you and I have added commentary to it, but also the quality of the matches is pretty damn good, considering there's nobody around there for them to work with, so the action's been outstanding too.
No, definitely. And even though we can't record in front of a crowd right now, you know, our guys can still work at least once, if not twice a week, and keep their skills sharp and learn. And obviously we have a lot of guys who are out right now, but we also have a lot
Matt Vine's in the house. He's got a big sweet pile of hair on his head for some reason. Go ahead.
Yeah. Everybody's favorite asshole, Matt Vine.
He's our asshole.
Exactly. Don't you be touching. He's ours.
Whoops.
Anyway, where the hell was I going with this?
I'm sorry, dog.
Wrapping it up.
He looked at me.
Yes, that's
He
right.
looked at me with those beady eyes, and I couldn't resist.
So, crowdless tapings, we were talking about that. So, obviously we have some guys who are, you know, taking their precautions and self-quarantining, but we also have guys who are, you know, still coming in, still wrestling,
taping.
and if they want a match, they get a match, and we put it on video, and it goes up on one of our streaming services, YouTube or Patreon or PivotShare.
All right, let's close this thing up with all of the pimping now.
Yeah.
Here comes the sweet pimping.
The stuff you've all been waiting for, and the stuff you've heard a million times already, but it always bears repeating, folks. Remember, you can follow us. As always, he has to get that in.
On Insta.
Yeah. You can
Hit
follow
us up on Insta. We never pimp Insta.
Yeah. No, we're on Insta. Our Insta's hot right now. YouTube, obviously, we just crossed 35,000 people. We're going to be at 40,000 before the end of the summer. I can guarantee you that right now.
Yeah.
I would put money on that.
I'm with you.
Facebook, obviously, is where you can get all of the latest, most breaking news. So as this thing, whatever developments happen with this lockdown, this COVID, this coronavirus deal, make sure you stay tuned to our Facebook page. Give us a like on there. And anytime we get an update, and we can update you folks on the happenings here as it relates to that, we're going to post it on Facebook. We said Insta, Twitter, we're on Twitter at Premier Planet. Patreon, very, very important. I say it all the time, folks. We're trying Patreon out. It's still relatively new, but we're giving you guys a lot of content for your dollar.
And content you can't get anywhere else, I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I'm the first and only gringo, well, I'm the first gringo, I'm probably the only, that actually asked Jose, what happened with you and Frank?
Yeah, you know, I think that's going to perk up a lot of ears too. And by all means, we always say, if you guys heard something different or you want to bring something to the table, it's an open forum. Leave a comment below.
Yeah.
we're open to it. If you guys want to ask a question, we'll address it on a future
But
episode.
don't act like I'm justifying anybody's behavior. All I'm saying is I understand it and I can walk a mile in the man's shoes.
Yeah. This is based on what Randy himself experienced. So, but if you guys have questions, if you guys have comments, leave them below and we'll get to those.
Now it's through Pivot Share and Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah, well, let's start with Pro Wrestling Tees. Man, we've got, I think, like 15 different shirts on Pro
I
Wrestling
swear to
Tees right
Christ,
now.
the designs are great.
Yeah, you've got...
Nobody's mom or brother made this shit in their bathroom during their off time. These are really good designs.
Yeah, and it's an election year, so make sure you log on, get your MAGA shirt, not MAGA, but MAGA. Make American Wrestling great again. Wear that with pride in this election year 2020. We also have shirts from Chase Gosling. Matt Vine has, I think, 3 different shirts on there. Jose Acosta in Nestra, our newest release, he's got 2 different designs on there.
Yeah,
Not
he really
bad,
broke
Chad.
balls too on those designs, so buy them.
Yeah,
It'll take
make him
some of the
happy.
pressure off and make him look like less of a dickhead.
Make him happy, and maybe he won't call you a racist. We also have our classic Premier Pro Wrestling shirts. If you just want to show support for the company, hey, we appreciate it. Get your Premier Pro Wrestling shirts on Pro
How
Wrestling
about the
Tees.
other one? Premier Pro Wrestling. We kick ass till we smell shit.
That one is up there, folks. That's not a joke. We have a shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees that says, we kick ass till we smell shit. You know why we have that up there?
Because we do.
Exactly.
All right,
So
wrap it up.
Pivot Share, our on-demand service,
Oh, yeah,
folks.
sorry.
That is our primary way right now. We are bringing you folks content from our weekly crowdless tapings during Corona
Current
Mania
content.
right now.
Still more current content than anyone else on Pivot Share. I know it to be true now.
Yeah. So the best way to get there, we could give you the address, but it's like that long, and I don't think I have enough room up here to fit the whole thing.
Premier Pro Wrestling on demand.
Yeah, see?
See?
So go to our official website, premierprowrestling.com, click the on-demand link, and below that there's a link that says sign up. You click that, that'll take you right to our Pivot Share platform. When you sign up, you get your first 2 weeks of streaming, 14 days, unlimited streaming, absolutely
so confident
free.
we are you're going to like it because that's how we'll hook you.
And then, if you like what you see, as we're confident, we firmly believe that you will, just $4.99 per month to keep streaming for the rest of the month. You can't get a value meal at a drive-thru for that usually.
Not today.
No.
So, how was my slowing down and enunciating, in your opinion? This
I'll let you know when I go through and do the editing. But I understood every word you said, which is good.
Yeah, usually when I start running together or get too fast or excited.
But you know what? Those are the times I think people enjoy watching.
Yeah,
They get fired up.
especially when I do Luke.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked about some pretty controversial stuff. I mean, we talked
Yeah.
about the death of Brody today and all the controversy surrounding that. A couple weeks ago, we touched on predators in professional wrestling, a very seldom talked about, but a needed to be talked about topic, and one that I think is going to come out when a lot of these guys stop, no longer have the influence on the industry that they currently do. And yeah, so
The grass was getting looser and looser by the unholy gaggle. All right, we'll see you next week. Thanks again.